Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the New Horizon. He looked out at the stars through the big window. His crew was running their daily checks on the ship's systems. They had been traveling through space for 3 weeks now, looking for new planets that humans might want to visit someday. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings from the asteroid belt," said Dr. Lisa Carter. She was the ship's science officer and the smartest person Jake had ever met. Her fingers moved quickly over her computer screen. "There are energy signals coming from that area. They don't look natural." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of signals?" "They look like ship engines, but they're very weak. Almost like they're about to die," Lisa said. She looked worried. "Captain, I think there might be ships out there that are in trouble." Ryan Walsh, the ship's engineer, looked up from his work. "If their engines are that weak, they won't last much longer. Whatever's out there is probably running out of power." Amy Rodriguez, who handled all communications for the ship, turned around in her chair. "Captain, should I try to contact them? If there are people out there, they might need help." Jake thought for a moment. They were supposed to be exploring empty space, not looking for trouble. But if someone needed help, he couldn't just fly away. That wasn't the human way. "Do it, Amy. Try to reach them," Jake said. Amy worked at her station for several minutes. She tried different radio frequencies and different ways of sending messages. Finally, she heard something. "Captain, I'm getting a response. It's very faint, but it's definitely a signal from someone," Amy said. "The signal is coming from the asteroid belt, just like Dr. Carter thought. Can you understand what they're saying?" Jake asked. "No, sir, it's not in any language I know. But it sounds like music, or maybe singing." "It's very strange," Amy replied. Lisa looked at her readings again. "Captain, I'm counting at least 50 ships out there. They're all moving very slowly, and their power levels are critically low. If we don't do something soon, those ships are going to lose all power." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the asteroid belt. We're going to see who's out there and if they need help." The New Horizon changed direction and flew toward the strange signals. As they got closer, Jake and his crew could see something that amazed them. Floating among the asteroids were dozens of ships unlike anything they had ever seen. The ships looked old and worn out. Some had holes in their sides, and others looked like they were held together with metal patches and hope. "My God," Ryan whispered. "Those ships look like they're about to fall apart." Lisa was studying the ships through the ship's telescopes. "Captain, I'm detecting life forms on those ships. Lots of them. But their life support systems are failing. They don't have much time left." Jake knew what he had to do. "Amy, keep trying to talk to them." "Lisa, I want to know everything you can tell me about those ships and whoever is on them." "Ryan, start preparing emergency supplies. We might need to help these people." As the New Horizon got closer, they could see the ships more clearly. They were beautiful in a strange way, with curved lines and smooth surfaces that looked almost like they had been grown instead of built. But they were clearly dying. Lights flickered on and off, and some ships were barely moving. Amy suddenly got excited. "Captain, I think I'm starting to understand their language. It's not words like we use. They communicate with different sounds and tones, almost like they're singing to each other. Can you talk back to them?" Jake asked. "I'm trying. I think I can send simple messages using the same kind of sounds," Amy said. After working for an hour, Amy finally managed to make contact. The aliens seemed surprised that someone was trying to talk to them. Through simple sounds and signals, they asked the New Horizon to come closer to their largest ship. Jake decided to take a small shuttle over to meet them. He took Lisa and Amy with him, leaving Ryan in charge of the New Horizon. As their shuttle approached the alien ship, Jake could see beings moving around inside through the windows. When they entered the alien ship, Jake got his first look at the people they had found. They were tall, about 7 feet high, with skin that looked like it was made of crystal. They had 4 arms instead of 2, and their eyes were large and seemed very sad. But they were also very graceful in the way they moved. One of the aliens, who seemed to be their leader, came forward. When it spoke, the sounds were like beautiful music. Amy listened carefully and tried to translate. "Captain, I think his name is Zenthara. He's thanking us for coming to help them," Amy said. "He says they are called the Kaleri." Zenthara continued to speak in his musical language. Amy's face grew more serious as she listened. "Captain, he's telling me their story. Their home planet was destroyed 3 years ago. Some big company came and dug up their entire world to get minerals out of the ground. The Kalari had nowhere else to go, so they built these ships and have been looking for a new home ever since." Jake felt angry. Someone destroyed their whole planet? Amy listened to more of Zenthara's story. He says they asked other alien governments for help, but everyone said no. Every planet they visited has turned them away. They've been living in these dying ships for 3 years, and they're running out of food and power. Lisa was using her scanner to check the health of the Kaleri around them. "Captain, these people are starving. Their ships are falling apart, and they don't have much time left." Jake looked at Zenthara and the other Kaleri. He could see the hope in their large eyes. They had been abandoned by everyone else in the galaxy, but maybe humans would be different. "Amy, tell Zenthara that. We're going to help them. Tell him that humans don't abandon people who need help." Jake said dot as Amy translated his words. Jake could see the relief on the faces of the Kalari. Some of them began to make soft musical sounds that Amy said meant they were crying with joy. Jake activated his communicator to call the New Horizon. "Ryan, start transferring all our emergency food and medical supplies to the Kaleri ships. And send a message to Earth. Tell them we found refugees who need help, and we need supply ships sent here immediately." "But Captain," Ryan said over the radio, "our orders were just to explore this system and report back." "Our orders didn't say anything about ignoring people who need help," Jake replied. "We're humans, Ryan. This is what we do." As the New Horizon began transferring supplies to the Kalari fleet, Jake knew that this moment would change everything. The galaxy had turned its back on these people, but humanity would not. Whatever it took, they would help the Kalari find a new home and a new hope. 3 days after Jake Morrison sent his message to Earth, the reply came back. Admiral Helen Brooks appeared on the communication screen in the New Horizon's main meeting room. Her face was serious, but Jake could see determination in her eyes. "Captain Morrison, I've read your report about the Kalari refugees," Admiral Brooks said. "The Earth government has voted on this matter. We're sending supply ships to your location immediately. The first ship should arrive in 2 weeks." Jake felt relief wash over him. "Thank you, Admiral. These people really need our help." "There's more, Captain. We're also sending diplomatic teams to speak with the Galactic Council about the Kalari situation. What happened to their planet was wrong, and we're going to make sure everyone knows it." After the communication ended, Lisa looked worried. "Captain, I hope the other alien governments will listen to us. We're still new members of the Galactic Council. They might not take us seriously." Jake nodded. "We'll have to wait and see. For now, let's focus on helping the Kalari survive until our supply ships arrive." Over the next few days, Jake and his crew worked closely with the Kalari. Lisa spent most of her time with their scientists, trying to learn about their culture and abilities. What she discovered amazed her. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa said excitedly. She was in the New Horizons laboratory with Zenthara and 2 other Kalari scientists. "Watch what they can do." Lisa had set up a container of dirty, polluted water from the ship's waste recycling system. Zenthara placed his 4 hands around the container and began to make soft musical sounds. As he sang, the water began to change. The dirt and chemicals separated out, leaving clean, pure water behind. They can clean poison from water just by using their voices, Lisa explained. And that's not all. Show him the other thing, Zenthara. One of the other Kalari, whose name sounded like harmony to human ears, began to sing a different kind of song. The sound was so beautiful and peaceful that Jake felt all his stress and worry fade away. For a few minutes, he felt completely calm and happy. Their songs can heal emotional pain, Lisa said. The Kalari told me they used to help other species deal with sadness and fear. But no one cared about these abilities because they couldn't make money from them. Meanwhile, Amy was learning more about the Kalari's tragic history. Zenthara told her about their beautiful home planet Kilanos. It had been covered with forests and crystal cities that grew from the ground like plants. The Kalari had lived in harmony with their world for thousands of years. Then the Hegemony Corporation came. Amy translated as Zenthara spoke. They said they had legal rights to mine the planet. The Galactic Council said the Kalari had to allow it because the minerals were needed for galactic trade. The mining operation had been brutal. The Hegemony Corporation used massive machines to tear apart the planet's surface. They destroyed the crystal cities and poisoned the forests. Within 2 years, Kilanos was a dead, empty rock. The Kalari tried to protest, but no one would listen. Amy continued translating. The Galactic Council said economic development was more important than preserving one small planet. Jake felt sick listening to this story. What about the other alien governments? Didn't anyone try to help? Zenthara's response made Amy look angry. He says the Zenthari Confederation told the Kalari they were too primitive to deserve protection. The Nereid Empire said the Kalari were economically worthless. Every government they asked for help said the same thing. 2 weeks later, the first human supply ships arrived. Captain Steve Collins commanded a fleet of 5 cargo vessels loaded with food, medical supplies, and equipment to repair the Kalari ships. The refugees were overjoyed to see help arriving, but the supply ships brought bad news along with the supplies. Captain Collins called a meeting with Jake and his officers. The galactic community is not happy about what we're doing, Collins said. Ambassador Thexnari from the Zenthari Confederation sent an official complaint to Earth. He says we're interfering with natural galactic processes. Natural processes? Lisa asked angrily. These people are refugees whose planet was destroyed. The Zenthari don't see it that way, Collins replied. They say the Kalari are what they call a failed species that couldn't adapt to galactic civilization. They think we're wasting resources on people who can't contribute anything valuable. Amy shook her head. That's horrible. The Kalari have amazing abilities. They could help so many other species. The galactic powers don't care about that, Collins said. High Tide Cole Massa from the Nereid Empire sent a message saying humans are too emotionally primitive to understand galactic economics. She thinks we're acting like children. Jake felt his anger growing. So they're saying we should just let the Kalari die? That's exactly what they're saying, Collins confirmed. And there's worse news. The Hegemony Corporation is sending ships. Here, they want to offer the Kalari what they call a final solution. 3 days later, the Hegemony ships arrived. There were 10 large, dark vessels that looked more like weapons than exploration ships. The largest ship sent a communication to the New Horizon. The alien who appeared on screen was a Sicarian, a species that looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. His name was Vexter, and he was the regional director for the Hegemony Corporation. His voice was cold and harsh. Human Captain, I am here to resolve the Kalari refugee situation once and for all, Vexter said. We are offering the Kalari a generous opportunity to work for the Hegemony Corporation on mining. Station 47. Jake didn't like the sound of this. What kind of work? The Kalari will provide labor for our mining operations. In exchange, we will give them food and shelter. It is a fair arrangement, Vexter replied. And if they refuse? Jake asked. Vexter's lizard-like face showed what might have been a smile, but it looked more like a threat. The Kalari have no other options, human. Every civilized species in the galaxy has refused to help them. You cannot support them forever. Our offer is the only way they can survive. After the communication ended, Jake called Zenthara to discuss the Hegemony's offer. The Kalari leader's response was immediate and clear. He says they would rather die than work for the company that destroyed their planet, Amy translated. Mining Station 47 is a moon with no atmosphere. The Kalari would be forced to work in dangerous conditions for the rest of their lives. Lisa had been researching the Hegemony Corporation's other operations. Captain, I've found records of other species that accepted similar offers. They're basically slaves. The Hegemony gives them just enough food to keep working, but never enough to be free. Jake made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Send a message to Vexter. Tell him the Kalari declined his offer. What if he threatens to take them by force? Collins asked. Then we'll have to stop him, Jake replied. The next day, Vexter sent another message. This time, his tone was more threatening. Human Captain, you are making a serious mistake. The Galactic Council supports the Hegemony Corporation's right to resolve this refugee crisis. If you continue to interfere, there will be consequences. Jake looked at his crew and the Kalari representatives who had gathered to hear the message. He thought about everything he had learned about these gentle, artistic people who had been abandoned by the galaxy. Send a reply, Jake told Amy. Tell Vexter that humans don't abandon people who need help. Tell him the Kalari are under our protection now. As Amy sent the message, Jake knew that humanity had just challenged the entire galactic order. The established powers had written off the Kalari as worthless, but humans saw something different. They saw people who deserve a chance to live free and rebuild their lives. The response from the galactic community was swift and harsh. Within hours, messages arrived from the Zentari Confederation and the Nereid Empire. Both governments warned that humanity was making a dangerous mistake by challenging established galactic law. But Jake and his crew didn't back down. They had found people who needed help, and they were going to help them no matter what the rest of the galaxy thought. It was the human way, and it was the right way. The Kalari themselves seemed amazed that anyone would stand up for them after 3 years of rejection and abandonment. Zenthara told Amy that his people had begun to believe they were truly worthless. But the humans had shown them that they still had value and dignity. As the human supply ships continued to arrive and help repair the Kalari fleet, Jake knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy's powerful governments and corporations were not going to give up easily. But humanity had drawn a line in space, and they would defend it no matter what came next. The standoff began when Vexter moved his hegemony ships closer to the Kalari refugee fleet. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the New Horizon as the dark corporate vessels formed a threatening line in space. The lizard-like Sicarian sent one final message. Human Captain, you have 72 hours to stop interfering with hegemony business, Vexter said. His voice was cold and dangerous. After that time, we will take action to resolve this refugee problem permanently. Jake understood the threat. If the Kalari didn't accept slavery on the mining station, Vexter would destroy their ships. Jake activated his ship's communication system and sent an emergency message to Earth. This is Captain Morrison requesting immediate military support. The Hegemony Corporation is threatening to attack Kalari refugees. We need help now. The reply came back faster than Jake had expected. Admiral Helen Brooks herself was coming with a fleet of human warships. But it would take them 5 days to arrive, and Vexter had only given them 3. We'll have to hold them off until Admiral Brooks gets here, Jake told his crew. Position the New Horizon between the Hegemony ships and the Kalari fleet. Captain Steve Collins, who commanded the human supply ships, moved his vessels into defensive positions as well. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned, but they refused to back down. On the second day of the standoff, more alien ships arrived. But they weren't coming to help the Kalari. Ambassador Thexnari of the Zenthari Confederation brought 3 of his species' war cruisers. High Tide Kol Massa of the Nereid Empire arrived with her aquatic vessels. The alien diplomats demanded to speak with Jake. When they appeared on his communication screen, both looked angry. Human Captain, you are causing a major diplomatic crisis, Ambassador Thexnari said. His species looked like tall, thin people with gray skin and no hair. The Galactic Council has rules about refugee situations. You cannot simply ignore Galactic law. High Tide Kol Massa, whose species lived underwater and wore special suits to survive in air, agreed. Your species is too new to galactic civilization to understand these matters. The Kalari situation was resolved years ago when they were classified as economically non-viable. Jake felt his anger rising. Resolved? You mean when you all decided to let them die? The Kalari had their chance to adapt to galactic civilization, Thexnari replied coldly. They failed. Natural selection applies to entire species, not just individuals. The Hegemony Corporation is offering them a reasonable solution, Kolmasa added. They can work on the mining station and contribute something useful to galactic society. Jake had been learning more about the Kalari from Lisa's research. Did you know that the Kalari can purify toxic waste and heal psychological trauma? They could help millions of people across the galaxy. Primitive abilities, Thexnari said dismissively. There are technological solutions to those problems that don't require maintaining an entire species. Lisa had been listening to the conversation from her science station. Captain, ask them about the environmental damage from hegemony mining operations. Jake leaned forward. What about the ecological disasters caused by the hegemony's mining? How many other planets have been damaged? The 2 ambassadors exchanged uncomfortable looks. That is not relevant to the current situation, Kolmasa said quickly. It's very relevant, Lisa interrupted, stepping into view of the communication screen. I've been analyzing the data from the Kalari homeworld destruction. The mining operation destabilized the entire stellar region. At least 12 other planets in nearby systems have suffered ecological damage. Thexnari's expression became even colder. Dr. Carter, you are interfering with matters beyond your understanding. The Galactic Council has determined that the economic benefits of hegemony operations outweigh minor environmental concerns. Minor? Jake asked. You're talking about the deaths of entire ecosystems. The galaxy requires resources to function, Kolmasa replied. Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Jake realized that he was seeing the true face of galactic civilization. These aliens talked about law and order, but they were really just protecting their own interests. The Kalari had been abandoned not because they were worthless, but because helping them would be inconvenient. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Amy Rodriguez. Captain, I'm detecting more ships approaching. They're not human or hegemony. Jake looked at his tactical display. A small fleet of unknown vessels was approaching from the outer system. As they got closer, Jake could see that they were ships from different alien species he had never seen before. Who are they? Jake asked. Amy worked at her communication station. I'm receiving a message from the lead ship. Captain, they're saying they're here to help the Kalari. The lead ship was commanded by a being called Captain Veltar from a species called the Thylaurians. When he appeared on screen, Jake saw that he looked like a cross between a human and a bird, with feathers instead of hair and large, intelligent eyes. Human Captain, my people have been watching your actions with great interest, Veltar said. We too have suffered from hegemony mining operations. Our colony world of Thylos Prime was strip mined 20 years ago. You're here to help us? Jake asked. We are here to help the Kalari, Veltar replied, and to stand against the same powers that destroyed our world. More ships continued to arrive. Captain Zara Mint of the Aquilian Republic brought her bird-like people's vessels. Commander Torek of the Granite Clans arrived with ships from his rock-like species. All of them had stories of environmental destruction and abandonment by the Galactic Council. Ambassador Thexnari was clearly not pleased by these developments. This is becoming a dangerous situation. The Galactic Council will not tolerate this kind of rebellion. What rebellion? Jake asked. We're just helping refugees. You are challenging the established order, Kolmasa said. Species like the Kalari, the Thylaurians, and the others are supposed to accept their place in galactic civilization. By supporting them, you are encouraging chaos. Jake was beginning to understand the real problem. The galactic powers weren't just indifferent to suffering. They were actively preventing smaller species from challenging their authority. The Kalari hadn't been abandoned because they were worthless. They had been abandoned because letting them survive would give hope to other oppressed species. The standoff continued into the third day. Vexter's deadline was approaching, and Jake knew the Sicarian would carry out his threat. But then Admiral Brooks arrived with the human fleet. The Admiral brought 12 warships, including the heavy cruiser Defender commanded by Captain Steve Collins and the battleship Guardian under Commander Kate Johnson. The human fleet took positions around the Kalari refugees and their new allies. Admiral Brooks opened communications with all the ships in the system. This is Admiral Helen Brooks of the Earth Defense Force. Any attack on the Kalari refugees will be considered an act of war against humanity. Vexter's response was immediate. Admiral, you are making a serious mistake. The Hegemony Corporation has the full support of the Galactic Council. If you attack our ships, you will be starting a war with half the galaxy. Then half the galaxy will learn what happens when you threaten innocent people, Brooks replied coldly. The tension in space was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species faced each other across the void. The Kalari refugees waited in their damaged vessels, knowing that their fate would be decided by the outcome of this confrontation. Then Vexter made his move. I am tired of these delays, he announced. The Kalari will accept our offer or face the consequences. One of the Hegemony ships fired a warning shot that just missed a Kalari vessel. The blast damaged the refugee ship's hull and killed 17. Kalari, who were working to repair their engines. Jake Morrison had seen enough. All ships return fire. He ordered. The New Horizons weapons blazed to life, striking the Hegemony ship that had fired the warning shot. Other human ships joined the attack, and within minutes, the corporate vessel was burning and retreating. The battle was brief but decisive. The Hegemony ships were designed for intimidation, not real combat. When faced with determined resistance from the human fleet and their allies, Vexter quickly realized he was outmatched. This is not over, humans, Vexter threatened as his ships retreated. The Galactic Council will hear of this attack on legitimate corporate operations. As the Hegemony fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Jake looked at the display, showing all the ships that had come to help the Kalari. Humans, Thylaurians, Aquilians, and others were all working together to protect the refugees. Admiral Brooks sent a message to all the ships. Today, we have shown that there is another way. We don't have to accept a galaxy where the strong prey. On the weak, we can build something better. Jake knew that the Admiral was right. This wasn't just about saving the Kalari anymore. It was about changing the entire galaxy. The consequences of the battle came swiftly. Within a week, the Galactic Council had imposed severe economic sanctions on Earth. Trade agreements were canceled, and human merchants were banned from major trading stations. The message was clear. Humanity would pay for defying galactic authority. Admiral Helen Brooks called an emergency meeting with all human ship commanders in the system. Jake Morrison joined the meeting aboard the Admiral's flagship, along with Captain Steve Collins, Commander Kate Johnson, and dozens of other officers. The situation on Earth is difficult, Admiral Brooks announced. The sanctions are hurting our economy, and some politicians are calling for us to abandon the Kalari to save our trade relationships. Captain Collins looked worried. What did the Earth government decide? Admiral Brooks smiled grimly. President Martinez gave a speech yesterday. He said that humanity's principles are not for sale at any price. We will not abandon the Kalari, no matter what it costs us. Jake felt proud of his species. So we're staying? We're staying, the Admiral confirmed. In fact, we're going to do more than just protect the Kalari. We're going to help them build a new home. The humans had found an uninhabited planet in the system that could support life with some work. It had water and a breathable atmosphere, but no plants or animals. With the right technology, it could become a new homeworld for the Kalari. Marine Colonel Dan Parker was put in charge of establishing a ground base on the planet. His troops worked alongside Kalari volunteers to set up temporary shelters and defensive positions. Major Susan Taylor coordinated the massive supply effort needed to support the new colony. The work was hard, but something amazing happened. The Kalari's natural abilities made the terraforming process much faster than anyone had expected. When they sang their harmonic songs, plants grew incredibly quickly. Areas that should have taken years to become fertile were ready for farming in just weeks. I've never seen anything like it, Dr. Lisa Carter reported to Jake. The Kalari can literally sing life into dead soil. What should have been a decades-long terraforming project is happening in months. But the Kalari's abilities went beyond just helping plants grow. Ryan Walsh, the New Horizons engineer, had been working with Kalari technicians to understand their environmental restoration techniques. Captain, they've taught us how to clean up pollution in ways we never imagined. Ryan explained. Their harmonic technology can break down toxic chemicals and restore damaged ecosystems. We could use this on Earth to fix environmental problems that we thought were permanent. The partnership between humans and Kalari was creating something new and wonderful. Human technology combined with Kalari abilities was producing results that neither species could achieve alone. The barren planet was rapidly becoming a garden world, but the Kalari weren't just helping with the terraforming. Their healing abilities were having a profound effect on the human soldiers and workers. Jake had noticed that his crew seemed calmer and happier since they had been working closely with the Kalari. Their songs do something to our minds, Doctor. Carter explained. They reduce stress and anxiety. Several of our Marines who had combat trauma from previous missions say they feel better than they have in years. Zen Thara, the Kalari leader, explained to Amy Rodriguez why this happened. He says that suffering creates discord in the mind, like broken music, Amy translated. The Kalari songs help restore harmony to damaged souls. The growing partnership was creating deep bonds between the two species. Humans who worked with the Kalari found themselves learning to appreciate the aliens' artistic and peaceful approach to life. The Kalari, in turn, were amazed by human determination and willingness to help others. But the peaceful development of the new colony was threatened when the major galactic powers decided to take direct action. The Xanthari Confederation, the Nereid Empire, and the Hegemony Corporation formed a military alliance specifically to deal with what they called the human problem. The alliance assembled a massive fleet under the command of Xanthari war leader Kreshter. Intelligence reports suggested that nearly 200 warships were gathering at the edge of the system, preparing for an attack. Admiral Brooks called another emergency meeting. "They're not just coming to take the Kaleri," she announced. "The galactic powers see us as a threat to their entire system of control. They want to make an example of humanity that will discourage other species from rebelling." Jake studied the tactical reports. "How many ships are we facing?" "Nearly 200 enemy vessels against our 43 ships, and whatever our allies can contribute," Brooks replied. "We're badly outnumbered." But humanity was not backing down. General Paul Mitchell, the overall commander of human military forces, had been coordinating the defense. Supply ships were arriving daily from Earth, bringing more weapons, troops, and equipment. "Every human colony has volunteered ships and personnel," General Mitchell reported. "We've got crews coming from Mars, Europa, Titan, and the outer colonies. Even civilian cargo haulers are being fitted with weapons to help in the defense." The message from Earth was clear. Humanity would not be intimidated by galactic threats. If the established powers wanted a war, they would get one. Dr. Carter made another important discovery during this time. She had been studying the environmental data from across the galaxy and found something shocking. "Captain, the Hegemony's mining operations have caused more damage than anyone realized," she told Jake. "The destruction of the Kaleri homeworld created a chain reaction that has affected dozens of star systems. Planets are losing their atmospheres, ecosystems are collapsing, and entire species are going extinct. And the Galactic Council knows about this?" Jake asked. "They have to know," Lisa replied. "The data is all there in their own environmental monitoring systems. They're covering up an ecological disaster that threatens hundreds of worlds." This information gave humanity a powerful weapon in the propaganda war. When the data was broadcast across the galaxy, many smaller species began to understand that the Galactic Council's policies were not just unjust. They were actively destroying entire star systems. Meanwhile, the Kalari colony continued to grow and prosper. The refugees were no longer refugees. They were building a new civilization that combined the best of human technology with Kalari environmental wisdom. Xanthara told Amy that his people had never imagined they could be happy again after losing their homeworld. "He says that humans have given them something more precious than a new planet," Amy translated. "You've given them hope for the future." But that future was threatened by the approaching enemy fleet. War leader Kreshter sent a final ultimatum to Admiral Brooks. "Human Admiral, you have brought this destruction upon yourselves," the Xanthari commander said in his message. "Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to continue existing as a minor galactic power. Continue to resist, and humanity will be classified as a rogue species and treated accordingly." Admiral Brooks' response was broadcast not just to Kreshter, but to every ship and every planet in the region. War leader Kreshter, humanity has already made its choice. We will not abandon innocent people to please tyrants. We will not bow to threats from those who value profit over life. If you want to take the Kaleri, you'll have to go through us first. As the enemy fleet approached the edge of the system, Jake Morrison looked out at the planet where Kalari and humans were working together to build a better future. Gardens were blooming where there had once been empty rock. Children of both species were playing together in the growing settlements. He thought about the choice humanity had made. They could have ignored the Kaleri refugees and maintained their comfortable position in galactic society. Instead, they had chosen to risk everything to help people who had nowhere else to turn. Now the galaxy's most powerful military forces were coming to destroy everything they had built. But Jake wasn't afraid. He had seen what humans and Kaleri could accomplish when they worked together. He had seen hope born from despair and beauty created from destruction. Whatever happened in the coming battle, Jake knew that humanity had already won the most important victory. They had proven that a different kind of galaxy was possible, one based on compassion instead of exploitation, cooperation instead of domination. The enemy fleet was now just hours away from entering the system. Human and allied ships took their final defensive positions around the Kalari colony world. The planet's surface was dotted with the lights of growing settlements, where two species were learning to live and work together. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars and thinking about how much had changed since they first discovered the dying Kaleri refugee fleet. Back then, he had just been an exploration captain following his conscience. Now he was part of something much bigger, a movement that was challenging the foundations of galactic civilization. "Captain," Amy Rodriguez called from her station, "I'm receiving a message from the colony. The Kalari want to contribute to the defense." Jake was surprised. How can they help? They don't have weapons or warships. Amy listened to the transmission and smiled. They're offering to use their harmonic abilities to disrupt enemy communications and coordination. Zenthara says they can create interference patterns that will make it hard for the enemy fleet to work together. The final battle began when war leader Kreshter's massive fleet entered the star system. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the New Horizon as nearly 200 enemy warships spread out in attack formation. The Zenthari, Nereid, and Hegemony vessels moved like a dark cloud across space, blotting out the stars. Admiral Helen Brooks commanded the human defense from her flagship. Her voice came over the communication system, calm and determined. "All ships, this is Admiral Brooks. Today we fight not just for the Kalari, but for the idea that the strong should protect the weak instead of preying on them. Make humanity proud." War leader Kreshter sent one final message before the fighting began. His gray, hairless face filled the communication screens throughout the human fleet. "Human Admiral, you have forced this conflict upon us. When your ships are burning and your colonies are in ruins, remember that you chose this path." Admiral Brooks' reply was broadcast to every ship in both fleets. "War leader, we chose to help people who needed help. If that makes us your enemy, then we accept that burden gladly." The first shots were fired by the Zenthari cruisers. Beams of energy lanced across space toward the human defensive line. Captain Steve Collins, commanding the heavy cruiser Defender, returned fire immediately. The space between the two fleets lit up with weapon discharges and exploding ships. Jake positioned the New Horizon to protect the Kaleri colony ships that were still too damaged to fight effectively. But he quickly discovered that the Kaleri were contributing to the battle in their own way. Zenthara and his people began their harmonic songs, creating interference patterns that disrupted enemy communications. "Captain, the enemy fleet is having trouble coordinating their attacks," Amy Rodriguez reported. "The Kaleri songs are causing chaos in their communication systems." The battle was fierce and desperate. The human fleet was badly outnumbered, but they fought with the determination of people defending their deepest beliefs. Commander Kate Johnson led the battleship Guardian in a bold attack against a group of hegemony vessels, breaking their formation and forcing them to retreat. But the enemy's superior numbers were beginning to tell. Human ships were taking heavy damage, and several had already been destroyed. Jake realized that conventional weapons alone would not be enough to win this fight. That's when Dr. Lisa Carter made a discovery that changed everything. She had been monitoring galactic communication networks and found something shocking. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from across the galaxy," Lisa announced excitedly. "The environmental data we broadcast about the hegemony's ecological disasters is causing massive protests on dozens of worlds. species that have been silent for decades are demanding action from their governments. Jake looked at his tactical display and saw something amazing. New ships were arriving at the edge of the system. Not more enemies, but allies. Species from across the galaxy were sending what ships they could to help defend the Kalari. Veltar of the Phylorians was among the first to arrive. His bird-like people brought a dozen fast attack ships that immediately joined the human battle line. "Human captain," Veltar said over the communication system, "the galaxy is watching. This battle, you must not fall." More ships continued to arrive. The rock-like granite clans sent their heavily armored vessels. The peaceful Silvari brought ships that could heal damaged vessels with their biotechnology. Even some member species of the major galactic powers were quietly sending support. But the most important arrival was a fleet of ships from the Aquilian Republic. Captain Zara Mint brought nearly 50 vessels, and she carried important news. Human Admiral, the Aquilian Senate has voted to withdraw from the Galactic Council in protest of this attack, Captain Mint announced. "We are formally requesting to join whatever alliance you are forming." The tide of battle began to turn as more allies arrived. The Kalari's harmonic abilities, combined with the diverse technologies of dozens of species, created a defensive network that the enemy fleet couldn't penetrate. Ships that should have been destroyed were healed by Silvari biotechnology. Enemy formations were disrupted by harmonic interference. Human determination held the line while allied reinforcements poured into the system. War leader Kreshter found his massive fleet being outmaneuvered and outfought by the desperate alliance of smaller species. When several of his own ships began to defect to the human side, he realized that his position was becoming impossible. The decisive moment came when Ryan Walsh and a team of Kalari engineers deployed a new weapon they had developed together. Using human technology enhanced by Kalari harmonic principles, they created devices that could heal damaged ecosystems almost instantly. Dr. Carter broadcast a demonstration of the new technology throughout the galaxy. Planets that had been damaged by mining operations could be restored to their original beauty in a matter of months instead of centuries. The implications were staggering. "This is what cooperation can achieve," Admiral Brooks announced on an open channel that reached every ship and every planet in the region. "Instead of destroying worlds for short-term profit, we can heal the damage and build a sustainable future for all species." The response from across the galaxy was overwhelming. Governments that had supported the attack on the Kalari began to face massive internal pressure. Protests erupted on hundreds of worlds as populations demanded an end to destructive corporate practices. Even some of Kreshter's own fleet began to question their mission. Xanthari ship commanders started to refuse orders to attack civilian targets. Nereid vessels withdrew from combat, claiming their crews were unwilling to fight against people who were offering to heal their damaged colonies. The final blow came when Vexter, the Hegemony Corporation's regional director, attempted to destroy the Kalari colony with a massive orbital bombardment. Captain Steve Collins led a desperate attack on the corporate flagship, but it was Jake Morrison who delivered the killing blow. The New Horizon, though badly damaged, managed to penetrate the Hegemony ship's defenses and destroy its main weapon systems. Vexter's ship was left powerless and drifting. Its threat ended forever. With their corporate allies defeated and their own crews in rebellion, war leader Kreshter finally accepted reality. "Human Admiral, we are withdrawing from this system," he announced, "but this conflict is not over. The Galactic Council will not forget this challenge to their authority." "Let them remember," Admiral Brooks replied. "Let them remember that there are still people in this galaxy who believe in justice and compassion." As the enemy fleet retreated, Jake looked around at the amazing collection of ships that had come to defend the Kalari. Dozens of species, many of whom had never worked together before, had united for a common cause. The formal ceremony took place 3 days later on the surface of the Kalari colony world. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the main settlement to sign the charter of the Free Worlds Alliance. Elder Zenthara and Admiral Brooks stood together as they signed the document that would create a new kind of galactic organization. Instead of being based on economic or military power, the Free Worlds Alliance would be founded on the principles of mutual aid and environmental restoration. Today marks the beginning of a new age, Zenthara said, his words translated into dozens of languages. No longer will the weak be abandoned by the strong. No longer will worlds be destroyed for profit while their people are ignored. Jake Morrison stood with his crew, watching as the ceremony concluded. Around them, the Kalari colony was thriving. Gardens bloomed where there had once been empty rock. Children of multiple species played together in parks that grew more beautiful. Each day, Dr. Carter approached Jake with a data pad full of reports. Captain, we're receiving requests for membership from over 300 star systems. Species that have been oppressed by the major galactic powers want to join the Free Worlds Alliance. Amy Rodriguez was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. The protests are continuing on the major worlds, she reported. The Galactic Council is facing the biggest crisis in its history. Ryan Walsh had been working with allied engineers to expand the ecosystem restoration technology. We're going to need a lot more equipment if we're going to help heal all the damaged worlds that are asking for assistance. Jake smiled as he looked out at the thriving colony. 6 months ago, he had been a simple exploration captain who found some refugees in an asteroid belt. Now he was part of a galactic revolution that was changing the fundamental nature of interstellar civilization. The Galactic Council's power was crumbling as more species demanded representation and protection for the vulnerable. The Free Worlds Alliance was growing every day, offering hope to billions of beings who had thought they had no voice. But most importantly, the Kalari had found their new home. They were no longer refugees fleeing from world to world, begging for scraps of compassion from indifferent governments. They were partners in building a better galaxy, using their unique abilities to heal damaged worlds and damaged souls. Elder Zenthara approached Jake as the ceremony ended. Through Amy's translation, the Kalari leader spoke words that Jake would never forget. Captain Morrison, when we first met you in that asteroid belt, we thought we were dying. We had given up hope that anyone in the galaxy cared about justice or mercy.